Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my March wrap-up. Okay, so the first book I read in March was called Before the Killing by Marjorie Kaptanoglu, and this was a mystery thriller. In 1973, 19-year-old Cassie returns home from her first year away in college, and on the next day her boyfriend Julian is the prime suspect in a brutal killing. And now, 7 years later, Cassie has gained the ability to time travel without altering the events that happened. And so, since she's confident in Julian's innocence, she goes back in time to witness the crime and all the events that led up to it. This was a very short book, so I'm not really gonna get into any details or I would just spoil everything, but it was a fun, cozy mystery that had some sci-fi or fantasy elements. And I also really liked the main character, and like the mystery itself was also very interesting. Also, there were like 2 Portuguese characters, which never happens, so that was fun too. And the one thing like I would have liked to have gotten was like an explanation on how Cassie was actually able to time travel, because it is talked about like the thing that gave her that ability, but it's not explained how. So I would have liked to have that explanation, but other than that, the mystery itself was definitely fun to follow, and like I said, I also really liked the main character, and I had a really great time reading this book, and I gave it 4 stars. And that was actually the first book in a series called Before, so after I finished that one, I read the second book, which is called Before She Was Taken. And in this one, the main character is called Rebecca, and she has the same abilities as Cassie did. She can travel in time without altering the events that happened. And when she was a child, her younger sister disappeared on her watch, and ever since she has always felt guilty. And now that she can go back in time, she can finally learn what happened to her sister. And so when she finally discovers what happened, she starts pursuing the abductors in the past and also in the present, which puts her own life at risk. And I really enjoyed following Rebecca and how she started to discover the mystery and like all the crazy things that she put herself through. And I actually did like the investigation as a whole better than the first book. And I also think I like Rebecca a little more than I like Cassie. And I also really liked Rebecca's sort of interaction relationship with another character that appeared and started to help her with the investigation. So I had even more fun with the second book, and I gave it 4.5 stars. Oh, and the ending was also definitely more satisfying than the ending of the first book. And the third book of the series has actually been published today, on the day that I'm filming this video, which is the day before I'll upload this video. So I am very excited to read that as well. So, the next book I read was called The Deep by Rivers Solomon, and this was a sort of fantasy novella. So in this book we follow Yetu. I'm not sure if I'm saying that name right, but we follow her and her people who are descendants of pregnant African slave women who were thrown overboard, and they now live in the ocean, in the deep. And the past of those people is very painful to be remembered by everyone, so every single person has forgotten about it, except for one, who is the historian, and that is Yetu. But those painful memories are also taking its toll on Yetu, and they are destroying her, so she decides to flee to the surface when she finds a whole different world. But she later realizes that in order for her people to survive, they need to reclaim their memories back and also their identity. And this book was really short, but there was like a lot to take in, and like I said, it's really short, so I'm not, again, gonna get into any details because I feel like I would just spoil everything. But the story was definitely, indeed, painful, but the writing was so beautiful. It was definitely intense, and it was dark, and it was hard, but it was a great book, and I gave it 4 stars. Okay, next book was called Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes, and this was a science fiction horror and also one of my most anticipated book releases for this year. And in this book we follow Claire and her beacon repair team as they go on their last ever mission. And after they finish the job they had to do, and when they're going back home, they pick up a strange distress signal and they decide to go check it out. And when they get there, they find the Aurora, which is a famous luxury space cruise that went missing over 20 years ago on its first ever voyage. And as soon as they get inside the Aurora, they realize that something isn't right. Apart from the obvious fact that it disappeared over 20 years ago and there is no one to be found alive in that ship, there are also strange whispers and strange movements and also words written in blood. And so they have to figure out what really happened in that ship before their crew suffers the same fate. And I loved this book so much. I really liked Claire and I really liked following her. Even though she wasn't the most reliable narrator, it was very fun. And I mean, maybe because she wasn't the most reliable narrator for a good chunk of the book, but it was definitely very interesting to follow her. And I really liked to see her relationships with the members of her crew. I thought they were like very well done. They seemed very realistic. And the mystery itself, I also thought it was really good. It definitely had me on the edge of my seat the whole time. And the horror aspect of it was also really great. I really enjoyed it. And I listened to the audiobook, and sometimes the narrator would like whisper when something creepy was happening, and that just made it so much more creepy, and I just loved it. The only thing that I would have to complain is that there was an answer that we never got, and I would have liked to know exactly like how or why that happened, and we didn't get to know that. But apart from that one thing, I really, really love this book, and I gave it 4.5 stars. Okay, the next book I read was The Fires of Heaven by Robert Jordan, and this is book 5 in the Wheel of Time series, which is an epic fantasy series that I have been reading, and I have a reading vlog in my channel for this book and also the 4 previous books. And since this is book 5, I am not really gonna talk about the plot because I wouldn't know how to do that without spoiling everything that happened before. So I'm just gonna say like things that I enjoyed, things that I didn't enjoy. So, things I enjoyed. I think I have a new favorite character in this series who I am obsessed with, and I am currently reading book 6 and still love him. But like, he is now my favorite character because my previous favorite character was not in this book at all, which is definitely something I didn't enjoy that much. But oh well. And also, I started liking a character that I used to really not like, so that was also pleasant. But on the other hand, the main character really annoyed me, and also something really bad happened to a character that I really loved. But in terms of the plot that I'm not gonna spoil, I really enjoyed it because I just really like the plot of this series in general as a whole, so really enjoyed it here too. And there was definitely some really cool action scenes which I also appreciated, and I gave this one 4 stars. Okay, so the next book I read was called These Silent Woods by Kimmy Cunningham Grant, and this was a mystery thriller. So we follow Cooper and his daughter Finch, who live in a remote cabin in the Appalachian woods. And Cooper's friend, who's called Jake, and who is the only person who knows they live there, besides their sort of strange neighbor. So Jake goes there every year to bring them some supplies, but this year he does not show up. And so Cooper and Finch know that there is something going on. And to make matters worse, a stranger enters their woods, and Finch starts sort of getting obsessed with her, and that could just jeopardize everything that Cooper has done to keep her safe. And I know that I said that this was a thriller, but apart from some tense moments, I wouldn't really say it was a thriller. I would say that it was more like a beautiful story about a father and a daughter and their relationship and the things that he has done to keep them together and keep her safe. And as we found out what really happened and what led them to living in the woods, I got really attached to these characters, and the ending got me really emotional, which I did not see coming. Like, that definitely caught me off guard. I was just overcome with emotions, like, out of nowhere, and I was like, what is happening to me? And also, one character's actions also caught me really off guard, which contributed to my emotional states. And like, I did not expect at all to be just so emotional in a thriller, because I was ready to give it like 4 stars, but then that ending broke me and then just fixed me at the same time, and I just loved it so much. And I gave it 5 stars because that was just perfect. Okay, so the next book I read was called Only a Monster by Vanessa Land, and this is book 1 in a new series called Monsters, and it's also one of my anticipated book releases for this year. So in this book we follow Joan, who is spending summer at her grandmother's house. And this summer has everything to be perfect, because she loves her job at a historic house, and she loves working with Nick, who she has a crush on. But then she discovers that her family isn't just eccentric. They are, in fact, monsters with some magical abilities. And Nick, who she has a crush on, is actually a legendary monster hunter. So what seemed to be the perfect summer just goes off the rails. And in order to save her family, Joan had to embrace her own monstrousness. And I really enjoyed this book. I definitely like discovering this monster underworld and how their magical abilities work. And there was sort of a monster court, I guess, that was also really cool, like the concept of how it existed. And there was a time travel component that was actually like a really big component that was also really unique and interesting, and I just really liked following Joan's adventure. And I also loved Joan herself as the main character. What I didn't care about, I'm not gonna say I didn't like it, I just didn't care about, was the romance. But I am me, so what else were we expecting? But anyway, the ending was not what I had expected, and I have many questions and I have many things that I want to happen, and I can't wait for the next book whenever it comes out, and I give this one 4 stars. Okay, so the next book was Blood Scion by Deborah Falaye, and this was a fantasy book which was also the first book in another new series also called Blood Scion, and it was also one of my most anticipated books of the year. So our main character, 15-year-old Sloane, is a Scion, which means she is a descendant of one of the Orisha gods, and her power is to be able to just burn her enemies. But under the Lucy's rule, she has to keep her identity a secret, because Scions are supposed to be executed. And now that she's 15, she is recruited to the Lucy's army, and she thinks that it's actually a good opportunity to destroy the Lucys from the inside. And I have a spoiler-free reading vlog up in my channel that was actually my last video, so I will link it in the description. And in this book, we follow Sloane in a first-person POV, so we just get to know her very well. And I love Sloane. She was a badass and strong and powerful and just an incredible main character. And I also love to learn about the magic system in this world, even though I'm sure there is still a lot more to learn, because I still have so many questions about the magic and just about the world in general and just about everything in this book. And for most part, I really thought the pacing was great as well, and there were some really well done action scenes. But having said that, this book was definitely very brutal and cruel and was not like an easy read at all. But the ending, there was like a huge revelation, and I am still in shock about like what happened there, and I need more. Like, I need the second book right now. Oh, just one more thing. In the previous book I talked about, I didn't care about the romance. In this one, I didn't like it, because I actually was shipping Sloane with another character. Like, for once, I was invested in a romance, but it was the wrong ship because when I do care about the romance, it's the wrong one. So yeah, and I do not like the right romance. So there is that, but I still did really enjoy the book and I gave it 4 stars. Okay, so last and also definitely least, we have The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. And this is a mystery thriller, and it was also actually one of my most anticipated books of the year. So in this book we follow Jess, and she needs a fresh start. So she asks her half-brother Ben if she can go spend some time at his Paris apartment. And he reluctantly agrees, and when she gets there, Ben is nowhere to be seen. And all of Ben's neighbors are very strange, and they also seem to be hiding something. And we get POVs from every single character, and I didn't care about any of them, including Jess, which also made me not care about the mystery. And speaking of the mystery, I feel like there was no progression of her sort of investigation at all, except at the very ending of the book. And I also felt like there was no tension build-up, there was no just tension at all. And like I said, I didn't care about anything in this book. Yeah, it was definitely disappointing, and I give it 2 stars. So we did not finish this month on a high. But anyway, this is everything for my March wrap-up. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, give it a like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!